This is a review for Outriders, spoilers ahead. What happens when you mix a cover shooter with chunky character models and alien bad guys? You get Outriders. Outriders is a third-person action shooter developed by People Can Fly and released on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC in 2021. In Outriders, you'll find yourself running from cover to cover, shooting at hordes of enemies trying to take you down while completing quests, upgrading your gear, and unleashing the powers given to you by an alien planet. By far, one of the best things Outriders has going for it is its story. This section is going to contain very heavy spoilers for the story, so maybe skip this part if you plan on playing the game yourself. Some sort of disaster has taken place on Earth, and it was so catastrophic that it forced humanity to search for a new planet to inhabit. They built a ship called the Caravel that was meant to take cryogenically frozen humans to the planet Enoch for colonization. But during construction, the ship exploded and killed thousands of people. They quickly built another ship called the Flores, which successfully launched and made its way toward Enoch. This is where we find ourselves at the start of the game. You play as an Outrider, a group of soldiers that were sent from the Flores, which now orbits Enoch, down to the planet to begin setting up the infrastructure required to bring down the rest of humanity. Upon landing, Enoch appears to be the paradise-like fresh start that humanity was looking for, but it quickly shows its true colors as the Outriders find hostile alien creatures and are enveloped by a powerful storm called the Anomaly. Your character gets badly injured by the storm and is placed in a cryopod to awaken later when doctors can heal them. You get woken up 30 years later and find that not only has the Anomaly healed you and changed you into a sort of superhuman called an Altered, but the Enoch you initially landed on has turned into another post-apocalyptic nightmare. A bunch of the humans that were supposed to stay aboard the Flores until the Outriders could get the infrastructure set up were brought down prematurely, and the resulting chaos led to poverty and hunger that split the humans into multiple factions warring over resources while trying to deal with the dangers of the alien creatures and the Anomaly. From there, you go about discovering the nature of the Anomaly and the powers it granted to you while attempting to find a signal to contact the Flores and have the rest of the cryopods and resources sent down from orbit. Along the way, you'll discover the remains of an intelligent alien species called the Pax that can control the Anomaly, and find out that after the Flores left Earth, humanity built a new, even better ship that was not only capable of a successful launch, but ended up beating the Flores to Enoch. Thinking you were the first group of humans to land on Enoch, you're shocked to find out that not only did this other human ship land on Enoch before you, but those first humans ended up enslaving and murdering a vast majority of the Pax, who turned to using the powers of the Anomaly to transform themselves into murderous savages in an attempt to fight back. While playing, you find notes scattered around the game that give you more in-depth lore, but it's not necessary that you read them in order to figure out the main story. Anytime you find a note with information that is vital to the plot, your character will say something about it anyway and tell you the gist of what the note said. The only part of the story that I thought was done poorly was Jakob's death. Shauna tells you that she had a vision that Jakob doesn't make it to the end, which completely ruins what otherwise could have been a really powerful plot moment. Instead, the second I saw Jakob running in during a cutscene, I knew this was the scene where he was going to die. Jakob is essentially your character's best friend, so his death would have been super impactful if it wasn't spoiled beforehand. After finishing the main storyline, you can play the World Slayer storyline, which is about an extra 5 hours of additional content, and it gives you more background into the source of the Anomaly. In Outriders, you can choose between a few different classes. For my playthrough, I finished the main storyline with the Pyromancer class, and I tried a few of the other classes just to get the vibe. I only played the first mission with them. The combat feels super smooth, which is important because this game loves to throw a ton of enemies at you, and any sort of clunkiness would make that very challenging to deal with. There's a nice variation of choices when it comes to weaponry. You have 3 different weapon slots, and you can fill 2 out of the 3 with your choice of standard shotguns, automatic shotguns, assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, burst fire rifles, fully automatic rifles, bolt action sniper rifles, rapid fire sniper rifles, and double guns, which are basically a cross between an assault rifle and an LMG. They have 2 barrels that alternate shots. The third slot is for your sidearm, and can either be a revolver or a pistol, some of which can be dual-wielded. These guns can be found by killing basic enemies or bosses, completing quests, or stomping on chess Gears of War style. Alongside your guns, you also have anomaly powers, which are special abilities to help you deal with the enemies. These include things like pushing enemies away from you, leeching health from enemies, making enemies explode, AoE style attacks, placing turrets, throwing grenades, stuns, etc. The cover mechanics in Outriders are basic but sufficient. On PC, you can press space to make your character crouch behind cover, and aiming down your sights makes your character pop up from the cover and go back behind the cover when you stop aiming down your sights. While behind cover, you can also look at other areas of cover nearby and use the spacebar to make your character quickly run from one bit of cover to the next. This way you can remain safe while taking out enemies and still advancing through the battlefield. Progression feels very good in this game. You often find that new enemies who were once mini-bosses and were very tough to defeat start getting thrown at you more and more often as you get more powerful, and eventually they just become another enemy among the horde. What used to take all of your focus and your abilities to defeat simply becomes another enemy that you can kill just by shooting it. You don't feel too overpowered though, as during the campaign at least, there's always a new, more powerful enemy added to the roster to keep you on your toes. By far, my favorite part of the combat in Outriders is that there are no healing items. Instead, you heal by using your abilities and damaging enemies through your leech skill. This means that when you're in trouble and about to die, the answer isn't running away to dig through your inventory. It's to get more aggressive and deal more damage. This keeps the combat intense and fast-paced. The only things that I think the combat system could have benefited from were mechanics like jumping and sliding. There were many times that I wish I could slide around a corner and shoot at enemies rather than just running. Jumping would have just made certain areas a little easier to traverse, as you can jump down from ledges, but you can't climb or jump up even the smallest of ledges. You have to move around them and find stairs or a ramp instead, which feels pretty outdated for a game that released in 2021. The game features a multiplayer mechanic where you can invite friends or join random teams of players who are at the same point in the campaign as you are. But when I tried it, the game never found anyone for me to join, so either there's not enough people playing the game in 2026, or nobody just happened to be in that same part of the story that I was in. When the game first released, it saw around 46,000 average daily players, but dropped below 1,000 average daily players after about a year and a half. At the time of writing this review, it's sitting at around 200 to 300 average daily players. During regular gameplay, the game looks fantastic. The graphics are fairly good and the environments are well crafted and full of detail. Unfortunately, some of the cutscenes and the main menu start to show some cracks. In terms of the art style, the game has a very heavy, chunky vibe to it. The male character model and the guns are very big and bulky in a sort of like hyper-masculine way. The guns are so big, in fact, that whenever any of the quote-unquote normal-sized characters are holding them, they look comically oversized. The storms have this magic electricity vibe to them with flowing blue energy, and as you progress through the story, the environments start to get more and more surreal as they're warped by the power of the anomaly, and you start encountering more alien architecture. To complement the great story, Outriders features phenomenal voice acting. The characters feel like they are actually having a conversation with each other and actually showing emotion, as opposed to just feeling like voice actors who are just reading their lines. The major flaw in Outriders is that it feels like a game that was almost ready, but needed 1 to 2 more patches to iron out the wrinkles before release. I found a lot of bugs and slight annoyances during my gameplay, so here are the ones that I remembered to write down. Sometimes textures just don't load in during cutscenes, leaving everything feeling flat and boring. One cutscene had dialogue, but the cutscene wasn't long enough, so it just randomly cut the dialogue partway through and jumped back into gameplay. Every time your character needs to open a door, clear away brush, or move something, there's a cutscene that plays. It feels completely unnecessary for these to be cutscenes as opposed to in-game animations. It's jarring for the game to just cut from gameplay to a cutscene just for your character to do one little small task with no dialogue and then suddenly cut back to gameplay. While you're in the main menu, it shows your character, but it doesn't feel like your character is in an actual space. It's simply your character and your truck on a blank gray background that looks like it came straight out of the game engine. It's not a fleshed out menu that was ready for release. Some cutscenes have your character model's feet and legs clipping through the ground. Some cutscenes have the subtitles misaligned with the audio so bad that the subtitles are multiple lines ahead of the audio. When you're unlocking new skills in the skill tree, there is no confirmation that you want to unlock a skill. If you click on it, it's unlocked and there's no way to undo the action. There should be some sort of pop-up that asks if you're sure you want to unlock that skill so you don't accidentally waste skill points. A lot of the NPCs in this game have lines they say when you walk past them, but some of them are super repetitive. There's this bar in Trenchtown that you have to go to over and over again throughout the main story if you want to complete the bounties, but there's an NPC right next to the door to the bar that repeats the line, "Watch it, don't step in the vomit," every single time you go there, even though there's not any vomit on the ground for me to step in. I'm a bit conflicted with whether this one is actually good or bad, but the weapon damage drop-off is greatly exaggerated in this game. You can kill an enemy up close with your automatic rifle in just a few shots, but once they're slightly further away, it suddenly takes you multiple clips to kill the exact same enemy with the exact same gun. I get that the developers might have wanted to incentivize players to swap between different guns for different ranges, but I just feel like it was implemented in a way that it was way too extreme. A few more shots maybe, but 10 times the amount of bullets just because they're 10 feet further away feels like too much. When interacting with something in the environment like doors or resources that you can collect, your character will move to the right spot before doing so that the animation lines up correctly. But sometimes your character will just move right and left over and over again, attempting to get into the right position but never figuring it out. You have to cancel the animation, reposition your character, and try it again. Sometimes you will get access to quests or parts of quests that you can't finish until you visit new locations at later points in the game. Unfortunately, the game doesn't tell you this information, so you will find that you're tracking some side quests that never shows you where you're supposed to go or what you're supposed to do until you progress the main quest more. For example, when I was in the quarry, I got a quest saying that I needed to go to the forest, but there was no location on my map marked as the forest. It turns out that it was the next major location we visited during the main story, but there was no way for me to know that while I was in the quarry. When you go to a new location on the map, it's simply titled Unknown Region until you go there. I was left wandering around the quarry, looking at my map over and over again, trying to find this hidden location called the forest because I wanted to finish the side quest in the quarry before moving on to the next unknown area, which happened to be the forest. Sometimes during cutscenes, your character would just have a completely different hair color. My character had gray hair, but would sometimes appear with black hair in cutscenes. There were multiple occasions where I tried using the tab button to show me the path to my currently tracked quest, but it would sometimes bug out and show me the path to a previously tracked quest instead, even though I had already finished that quest. Each time in order to fix it, I would have to quit to the main menu and then go back into the game. Sometimes items on the ground would have a green triangle in the corner, indicating that it has better stats than my currently equipped item in that slot. But when I picked it up and examined it, I found out that it did not have better stats, and it would suddenly switch to showing a red triangle, indicating that it has worse stats than my currently equipped item. There was one time where I saw a bunch of red dots pop up on the minimap right in front of me, indicating that a bunch of enemies had just spawned in, but only one was actually visible, until I shot it, and then suddenly all the other enemies popped into existence. There's this continuity issue in the story where your character refers to the alien civilization as the Pax too early. You don't find the note explaining that a scientist studying the aliens named them the Pax until later on. But your character has this conversation where they use the name Pax, and everyone in your party just understands what they're talking about before you find that note. After clearing an area at the end of a quest, there's usually an icon that pops up that you can use to teleport out of the area, but it would sometimes glitch and show a map that had no teleport options. So I ended up having to spend a few minutes running all the way back through the map that I just cleared. During my entire playthrough, I was never able to see how many shards I had in my inventory. It showed the shards icon, but it had no number associated with it. I could only vaguely tell how many I had by trying to spend them to upgrade guns, and it either letting me or telling me that I didn't have enough. I encountered a glitch where I was told to clear the mausoleum, but the enemies never spawned in, and I couldn't leave the area because it said there was a battle in progress. I ended up having to quit to the main menu and re-join the game in order to fix it. Although I have this fairly large list of issues, they were pretty minor in the grand scheme of things and felt like stuff that could have easily been fixed with just 1 or 2 more patches before release. They didn't stop me from finishing or enjoying the game, but it does beg the question, why weren't these issues found and addressed during regular playtesting? So who is this game for? If you like the cover shooter mechanics and the chunky masculine vibes of Gears of War, you'll love Outriders from a gameplay perspective. If you enjoy single-player sci-fi stories with great voice acting, then Outriders will appeal to you from a lore perspective. But if you're looking for a game with advanced movement mechanics, heavy RPG elements, a large player base, or just can't handle some minor bugs during your playthrough, then you might want to look elsewhere. Outriders is currently selling for $20 on Steam and the Xbox Store, and I think that's a really good price. For your money, you're getting a campaign with about 20 to 30 hours worth of content and a good story, plus a bunch of additional side content that you can complete after, essentially indefinitely. I'm going to give Outriders an 8 out of 10. It's a game where a few things were done poorly, but a majority of it was done fantastically, and I think it's worth spending the money to play it if the story and mechanics intrigue you.